Yasuko Namba was a Japanese mountaineer. She was born on the 2nd of February 1949. She worked as a businesswoman for Federal Express in Tokyo, Japan. Alongside her career as a businesswoman, Namba passionately explored the world of mountaineering. Her remarkable mountaineering journey began by summiting Mount Kilimanjaro on New Year's Day in 1982, followed precisely 2 years later by Aconcagua. A year and a half later, she reached the summit of Denali in Alaska. On the 1st of August 1992, Namba successfully reached the summit of Mount Elbrus. Next year, she went to Antarctica and summited Vinson Massif on the 29th of December 1993. The following year, Namba climbed Carstensz Pyramids on the 12th of November 1994. Her final summit to reach was Mount Everest. In April 1996, after completing 6 of the 7 summits, Namba joined Adventure Consultants, the guiding company led by Rob Hall, to conquer the world's highest peak, Mount Everest. She began her acclimatization on the mountain in late April 1996. There were different mountaineering expeditions to Everest in 1996, including Scott Fisher's Mountain Madness and a 12-person IMAX expedition. Rob Hall's Adventure Consultants expedition consisted of 8 paying clients and 3 guides. In addition, there were 10 Sherpas who were assisting the expedition. Before leaving base camp, Rob Hall and Scott Fisher called a meeting of guides from both teams, during which they agreed that each expedition would dispatch 2 Sherpas, including the climbing Sardars, Ang Dorje and Lapsing Jangbo Sherpa, from Camp 4 90 minutes ahead of the main groups. This would give the Sherpas time to install fixed lines on the most exposed sections of the upper mountain before the clients arrived. Rob made it very clear how important it was to do this. He wanted to avoid a time-consuming bottleneck at all costs. Rob Hall had set a deadline of 2 p.m., after which all clients who had not arrived at the summit were to be turned back out of concerns for severe weather and poor visibility that happened higher on the mountain. The expedition proceeded without incident until the afternoon of May 10. Shortly after midnight on May 10, the expedition began the summit push from Camp 4 atop the South Col. Hall's Everest expedition was joined by Scott Fisher's Mountain Madness and a team from Taiwan. As the climbers from 3 expeditions attempted to reach the summit, they quickly encountered a series of problems and delays. Upon reaching the hillary step, the climbers found that no fixed roofs had been placed. Lapsing Jangbo Sherpa, who was supposed to install the roofs with Ang Dorje, was shot roofing Sandy Hill Fitman lower on the mountain. There was a traffic jam at the hillary step, and the climbers were forced to wait for an hour while the guides installed the roofs. Things began to go seriously wrong. With a large number of climbers on the move at the same time, there were bottlenecks at the single fixed line at the hillary step. As crucial time spent on fixing new roofs, the tight scheduling for the climb began to slip. Many of the climbers had not yet reached the summit by 2 p.m. Yasuko Namba reached the summit with Rob Hall and my groom at around 2:10 p.m. She accomplished the extraordinary feat of summiting Mount Everest at the age of 47. Becoming the oldest woman to climb Everest at that time. Later, Anna Chervinska of Poland climbed Everest at the age of 50. Namba also became the second Japanese woman to scale the highest mountain on each continent after Junko Tabe. After a short celebration on the summit, Namba started her long descent back to Camp 4. Around 5 p.m., when Namba just arrived at the balcony with groom, a more storm struck the southwest base of Everest. Visibility had dropped to a few meters. The climbing route to Camp 4 was obliterated. Winds were blowing at 75 miles per hour. Temperatures had plummeted. Below the south summit, Yasuko Namba, Beck Weathers, Sandy Helfetman, Charlotte Fox, and Tim Madsen were trapped by the storm. They had managed to get this far because of the superhuman dedication shown by guide Neil Bidelman, who literally helped drag 5 climbers down the south summit while battling a raging storm. 500 feet above the south col, Namba's oxygen ran out. She sat down and refused to move. She insisted on putting her oxygen mask on despite the fact that she had run out of oxygen. Due to the challenging conditions and a whiteout, the climbers became stranded on the south col and were unable to locate their tent. Both Namba and Weathers were so weak that Bidelman and groom had to support them. Recognizing the frail condition of Namba and Weathers, Bidelman and groom realized it was unsafe to move them towards the camp in raging storm. They decided to wait for a break in the storm instead. Sometime later, the guides left the clients in a relatively safe location and headed for Camp 4 in search of help. After Bidelman and the others had set out from the huddle to get help, Madsen had gathered together the climbers who remained and hectored everybody to keep moving in order to stay warm. He sat Namba down in Beck Weathers' lap. Beck was unresponsive by that time, and Namba wasn't moving at all. A little later, she laid down flat on her back, with snow blowing into her hood. She had lost a glove and her right hand was bare. Her fingers were curled up tightly. It looked like they were pretty much frozen to the bone. Madsen thought she was dead, but then a while later, she suddenly moved. She arched her neck slightly, as if she was trying to sit up, and her right arm came up. Then that was it. She lay back down and never moved again. At around 9 p.m., Martin Adams returned to Camp 4, but he was too weak to speak. Later, 3 other team members, Neil Bidelman, Lenny Gamelgard, and Cliff Schoening, found their way down to Camp 4 and collapsed. They were shaking from hypothermia. They told Anatoly Bukreev about Charlotte Fox, Tim Madsen, Sandy Helfetman, Yasuko Namba, and Beck Weathers, who were hopelessly lost in the storm not far from the camp. Lapsing Jambu Sherpa appeared and told Anatoly Bukreev that Fesha had collapsed and stuck at around 8,500 meters. There were a number of climbers at Camp 4. Ian Udall, Kathy O'Dowd, and Bruce Herrer from the South African team, and a number of climbers from Henry Todd's team, who hadn't yet attempted the summit and were thus relatively well rested. Anatoly Bukreev went from tent to tent trying to find members of other expeditions who might be in a position to offer assistance. But no one helped him to rescue the stranded climbers. Due to a furious storm raging outside, those who returned to Camp 4 at the South Col were not ready to mount a rescue mission. Everyone was either too exhausted or simply understood that going out in a blizzard would be fatal. So Bukrib resolved to bring back the stranded climbers by himself. Overcoming his own crippling exhaustion, he plunged into the maw of the hurricane and searched the cold for nearly an hour. It was an incredible display of strength and courage, but he was unable to find any of the missing climbers. Bukrib didn't give up, however. He returned to camp, obtained a more detailed set of directions from Bartleman and Schoening. 5 climbers needed help and only Bukrib was willing to go out. Despite extremely harsh and dangerous conditions, he went after the stranded climbers with hot tea and bottled oxygen. This time he was able to locate the missing climbers. The climbers were lying on the ice, without movement. They couldn't talk. Madsen was still conscious and largely able to take care of himself, but Pittman, Fox, and Withers were utterly helpless, and Namba appeared to be dead. As soon as Bukrib found the group, it became obvious to him that he could bring only one climber in at a time. He was carrying an extra bottle, which he hooked up to Pittman's mask. Then he made numerous trips in the storm, and led, and in some cases, dragged Sandy Hill Fatman, Charlotte Fox, and Tim Madsen back to camp. Madsen assumed that Namba was dead, and considered Withers as beyond saving, so they were left alone. Gamelgard remembers seeing Bukrib after he returned with Fox and Madsen around 5 a.m. It was already light, and he said without saying a word. He was completely exhausted. There was no energy left in him. The following day, a search team was organized by Stuart Hutchison, one of Adventure Consultant's clients, to locate Namba and Withers. He found both in such bad shape that they were unlikely to live long enough to be carried down to base camp, and he decided to leave the two alone to save limited resources for the other climbers. While Big Feathers miraculously managed to survive against all expectation and walk back to camp, Yasuko Namba tragically died alone, in the middle of the night, from exposure to the harsh conditions of the mountain. She lost a few hundred meters away from the camp. Anatoly Bukrib expressed profound regret at her lonely death, saying that she was just a little 90-pound woman, and someone should have been able to drag her back to camp so she could at least die among her companions. He carried a deep sense of remorse until his passing for failing to rescue her from death on Everest. The haunting memory of being unable to return to Namba after successfully rescuing 3 other climbers to safety troubled him profoundly. As a testament to his sorrow, while descending Everest in April 1997, Bukrib constructed a protective cane around Namba's body to protect her from scavenging birds. A few days later, he apologized to Yasuko Namba's widow, Kinichi Namba, at a tea house for failing to save her life. Despite the adventure consultant's team's inability to come to Namba's aid, Anatoly never attributed her death to her teammates. Neil Bidelman also felt guilty for being unable to do more to save Yasuko Namba. Later in 1997, Kinichi Namba founded an operation and retrieved her body from the mountain. He took it back to Japan. There, he gave her a proper burial. Yasuko Namba was a determined woman. She was a reserved individual. She possessed a pleasant demeanor and displayed a strong sense of decency. She exhibited unwavering focus and determination. The 1996 Mount Everest disaster remains one of the most tragic events in mountaineering history. The disaster claimed the lives of 8 climbers, including Rob Hall, Scott Fisher, Andy Harris, Doug Henson, Yasuko Namba, Sevan Faljor, Savings Manla, and Dorje Morov. The disaster left a lasting impact on the world of mountaineering. In memory of the tragic accident in 1996, 2 memorial monuments were constructed near Gorakhpur by the Sherpas. One memorial honors Rob Hall, while the other commemorates his fellow climbers Doug Henson, Andy Harris, and Yasuko Namba. These monuments stand side by side, connected by prayer flags, symbolizing their unity and spirit. Thank you all so much for watching.